This is how to successfully build a luxury brand. I'm using a case study on this concept of heritage maximalism. It's a widely used term, but one I actually made up on TikTok like 2 years ago. And we're in an interesting era where brands aren't trying to pop out and look brand new anymore. They're not yassifying, but instead they're trying to invent a brand identity and find a legacy that may or may not exist that makes them feel like they've been around forever. And you see this in fashion with brands like ALD doing their best Ralph Lauren impression. And you couldn't tell if that brand is 30 years old, 50 years old, or 5 years old. You're also seeing the same thing in packaged goods. So my friend Andrea at the Snack Shot had a recent post about this where she's actually calling out, I think she called it Nouveau Artisanal, where she's actually calling out some of the brands for taking this strategy where they're saying, hey, we actually want to look like we've been around for 100 years inside our packaging. With some really interesting examples of kind of how that's being merged into a combination of modern aesthetics as well. But this Brisca olive oil is a great example of like it's a full period piece. But in this video, I'm gonna go through a whole variety of things. I'm gonna talk about the state of aesthetics and the aesthetics that were like the millennial defining era into where we're at today and how we've moved from 90s nostalgia to like nightcore nostalgia. I'm talking about my recent trip to Paris and seeing how people are embracing some of these older aesthetics. We're gonna dive deep into a brand called 1803 Buly, who are the poster child of basically creating a luxury house out of thin air and how they've done it and why I think it's a really interesting playbook for other brands to look at and replicate. I'm gonna share some other examples from inside the food industry. We're gonna talk about luxury toothpaste, how technology is embracing this new look and feel, and overall, what the tools, ideas, and recipes are to make something seem like it's been around forever, to help justify these higher price points, and what a holistic luxury experience looks like for a brand being built for the next decade. So first, we lived in this era. If you're a millennial, you lived through this. If you're Gen Z, you may lightly remember it, where all these new brands were coming out. And they were all being branded by these agencies like Gin Lane and Red Antler to look like these new millennial brands. There was these cartoon characters, these very primary colors, these millennial pastels, very simple logos. Everything was becoming very millennial, for lack of a better term. And you'll recognize brand after brand that was basically done by these same handful of agencies who were just known for cranking out these like simple, successful, millennial forward brands. And what we're seeing now is a reaction to that because many people were kind of taken advantage of by those brands. We've seen a lot of those brands go from darlings to bankrupt or had founder issues. There's a lot of kind of glorified issues that happened inside that era. And also just consumer taste switches over time. And none of those brands positioned as luxury. They positioned in this middle tier where it said, hey, we're gonna cost more than the traditional thing. We're gonna look a little better. Our marketing's gonna be a little bit better. We're not gonna go up to the full era of luxury. We're gonna charge a premium for our aesthetics. And what we found is that people don't want to buy the premium for those aesthetics purely anymore. In fact, they feel like they're kind of getting a raw deal for that and have been educated enough by the internet to understand it. They actually do want to feel like they are buying history, luxury, and an experience with what they get. And this comes with a bigger idea, this shift into maximalism, away from minimalism that a lot of brands should be super aware of. Where you'll see now the aspirational apartment isn't an ultra minimalist millennial, it has gold frames and splashes of color. The looks inside Architectural Digest have shifted. There's amorphous shapes, there's plants. Things are extra versus simple. And it was interesting, I went to Paris a few months ago. I made a handful of videos that went pretty viral, and one of them was just about the experiences you can do in Paris if you're into maximalism. And one of the ones I called out was from this artist group, Ex Libris, who I stumbled into inside of like these luxury pet stores I was around. Above them on one of the floors was basically like a little booth where they would make crests. They will like basically hand draw and come up with crests for you. And they have this business I'm scrolling through here where they just have all these gorgeous, like very intricate, very traditional crests you can get, like with a stamp for a fee from this group. And it went extremely popular. Like everyone was commenting and asking about them. They got a bunch of followers and inquiries. And it was just a reminder of like what people are looking for when it comes to aesthetics, which ties really much into where the foundation of luxury is today, that they want this kind of legacy look and approach. And I think this is in a large part due to how easy aesthetics have become to replicate, especially with AI, where anything that's relatively modern or simple can be replicated very easily using all these basic tools that we are basically proliferated with how easy it is with Creative Market and a few stock assets and a little bit of ChatGPT and Midjourney to make any basic modern brand. That people see so much of that and are inundated so much with that, that really when they think of aspirational or something that they want, something that represents them, they want something that's handmade, that has more care, that is more intricate. And something like Ex Libris is an amazing ability to go have that kind of level of experience one-to-one with an artisan versus everything we deal with in this internet era. And I bring this up because this is what I think the foundation of luxury looks like for these next decades, is that it is really historical based. Even if you are creating something new, the experience needs to be that craftsman focused, that artisan, that ornate in that way. And I've talked about the pillars of luxury before. I've talked about how luxury needs to last over time. I've talked about how the quality needs to be there. The difference between something that's bespoke, something that's designer, and something that's luxury. We'll save that for another video. I'll link at the end. But in this video, I want to focus on that heritage maximalism aesthetic and how people can basically create a legacy brand out of thin air. And to do that, I want to talk about Buly 1803 because they are someone who's done it. They are not a brand that has been around forever. This is a company formed in 2014, acquired by LVMH. It's a decade and change old that references an ancient brand, that pulls on all the tropes you'd expect from a brand that has legacy in terms of how it presents itself, what the packaging looks like, what's on the website, the experience inside their stores, positions it very much as a brand from 1803, as well as it being in the name, even though it is something new. And it's actually becoming quite controversial. There's a lawsuit out there from a perfumery or fragrance house that says that they took their imagery and use a lot of their imagery inside the intricate packaging that they present. As of me making this video, or at least writing this, that remained unresolved. But the point is they've created a brand identity around positioning themselves as legacy and done it successfully. Because at the end of the day, the consumer doesn't really care if that actual history is there. They care about the quality of the product they're getting, the look and feel of what's happening, if they feel like they're buying into a movement, if they get the results, and if they can have the experience. We're going to go through those one by one. So first is presentation. They have immaculately designed packaging in the most ornate levels possible in ways that is kind of even hard to comprehend how one goes about making something like that. These are mainly skin products and body products, but there is intricate illustration on essentially everything. There are labels that get it to being an older time. Same thing with the ingredients, with everything about how this is positioned. There is at no point do you doubt for a second that they are not all in on this identity of some vintage luxury, of this heritage maximalism idea. And this carries through to the experience in store. If you go into the store, is a time capsule, intricate presentation, and they have leveraged that to also provide an experience. And this is one of the biggest things I think is crucial for any luxury branding being done in this modern era, is if you want to take that shortcut to time, you need to have this experience element. I'll call it ALD around this as well, because part of what has cemented them was when they launched the ALD cafes, which became a destination, which had a look and feel, which felt like luxury. They're done better than the Ralph Lauren cafes that they are replicating in terms of design and experience, and present them as a artisan thing you can go do. Even if you're not actually purchasing an ALD jacket, you can go buy in on your ALD coffee. And where Buly has done this in a genius perspective is when you go to Paris, one of the most crowded experiences that you can do is to actually go get, in any of those locations, you can get engraved combs and brushes from them. That is an extremely popular thing to do. It is relatively affordable. It's like a 50 euro, say 30 to 100, depending on the model that you choose. And you get it engraved there. You exit with an absolutely like ornate bag. The whole thing, because the way the stores look and the way the brand looks and the experience in there, is perfect for making video content. And you can buy your little piece of Paris as part of that experience, which is something everyone wants to do. They want to be able to have that video of going to a thing that they know is going to look great on the internet. They want that memoir that's not like some random thing. It's a brush or something useful they'll have in their life day to day. And Buly nailed this by saying, not only do we have this product lineup, this brand, this intricacy, we have this physical real life experience that is worth seeking out, that becomes part of someone's plan inside their journey, much as stopping and getting a coffee when you are in the LES or wherever the ALD store is, has become a part of the day of their target consumer or visitors into the city knowing they have a destination to go there.
All right, so in this segment, I'm going to talk about the email marketing that some of these heritage maximalist luxury brands do. And I'm going to show you a bit inside of Omnisend, which is the email software I use for the brands I work with, how to actually set some of it up. So this segment is sponsored by Omnisend, but as always, I don't want to just talk about a software. I want to show you how to do something you can use in your career with it. So first, I'm going to start inside of Mild. Mild is a free tool that you can use to see brands' email marketing. So I'm going to pop in here. I'm going to look at Buly 1803 and the actual emails that they use. And one thing I wanted to call out and why I like to do this is you can see how luxury actually does email. So here, beautiful title at the top, also all the graphics we've talked about. But look at, they're writing a novel inside of this email. There's so much text, there's history, there is context. This is kind of the opposite of the email marketing playbook a lot of brands do, who say, hey, we're just gonna have one graphic and a little button that says call to action. They're literally educating you on all kinds of stuff. It is in French. As you can tell, I'm here in Europe, so some of the default language is French and Italian on things I look up. But you can see inside here, we got like a whole history of Marie Antoinette, going into a Victor Hugo quote, then going into them talking about their products. And so I just want to call this out to note that you should feel okay putting lore and history and thought into your email if you are a luxury brand. Now heading over into Omnisend, I want to talk about automations. So I'm going to go here to automation. I'm going to hit create workflow. A lot of people get, I guess, spooked by the concept of automation. Sounds like it's something that's really complicated, but it's actually really easy and it's a core part of selling for your brand. So here they have a bunch of pre-built automations you can just click and get into. Something like a welcome automation, which we'll talk about here. So automation has a few things you should know about. They have triggers. So based on something that people does, an action gets created. Then they have actions, so things like a delay or an A/B test or splitting people by some parameters they have. And they have actual emails you can put in there. So one of the things I love to do if a brand has no automation already is actually just go through their best performing emails, save them as a template, and then load them into a flow like this. I'm gonna start a new flow just to show you how. So create from scratch, define how a person enters a workflow. So I'm gonna put enter a segment. Segments are basically lists and portions of lists inside of Omnisend. I can select that. I'm gonna select my pre-release segment I have inside this account just for relevancy. I can choose to trigger that workflow for people that already exist when I set it up, or I can just have it for new people that come in. I'm just gonna set this for new people that come in. And you'll see these actions. I'm gonna delay, pop that right in here. I also might wanna tag them. So I'm gonna say, hey, let's wait for 1 minute after they signed up before we send that email. I wanna add them to a new tag, pop that in there. And then I can put an email or an SMS. Literally, you're just dragging it. And then that email, I can either set that up right here. I can save this content. This will allow me when I go into edit content, I can actually go and I can change the template to any template that I already have. So I will save other emails as templates or usually set it up before I drop it in, or you could just go custom design it. But then once I create this, I can do the same thing. I can delay again, say, hey, I want to delay this for another 2 days. I can drop in another email, do another delay. Hey, I want you to actually get this 7 days later. And that gives you the basics of how to put together a flow. So what I will typically do here for a brand is I will have an auto email, not just like behind the brand, be like, hey, here's all our top performing videos. Here's our best selling products and why. Here's frequently asked questions about styling or sizing or how it works, kind of thrown in there with some content. And to the point of the Buly emails we looked at earlier, don't be afraid to like really go in depth about what makes your brand special inside of email. So I'm doing all this inside of Omnisend. Omnisend is a great choice for brands who want to send email. It links direct to your Shopify. You can actually segment and send emails and tag and stuff based on what products people purchase. It'll do your cart abandonment workflow, and you can add more emails and triggers to that. You can do back in stock notifications. And they do all this at a greater value, so it has a cheaper cost overall for the amount of emails in your system than a lot of the popular alternative email marketing softwares. You can learn more about them in the link to Omnisend in my description. That is an affiliate link, so if you do join or use them, then that helps me as well. Hopefully you learned a little bit about email automation and how it is not an intimidating thing to set up, and just adds so much more value over time as you get subscribers to have them automatically being onboarded to your brand. Let's go.
What's most interesting to me is this is based on a house, but they just took it, right? Whether the allegations of the lawsuit are real or not, they took an identity of something or created and fabricated an identity and made it their own. And we live in this world building time where you can do that. If you have the creative vision, you can actually come up with your own complete history of something. It's a fascinating exercise and go fully into it. If you're a creative, I've seen no idea why you wouldn't want to do something like that and build something wholly interesting and immersive to that level with all the tools we have available today to be creative. Like that is a differentiator of kind of true luxury. I don't talk about some of those other videos, is the ability to create something so magnificent that people are drawn to it, which is something they've done here. I feel like that's something every creative should be able to aspire to. And related, I want to talk about a chef. He's a French chef called Jan Cavreur. He has a store in Miami, but they've done like a light version of this where they have iconography. They have this fox, this kind of very like a playful, whimsical, very French-based identity, a former identity. And they've played it out extensively over their packaging and the different things that they have for their brand in terms of how they display everything, how intricate everything is, how everything feels like a long time historical bakery, even though it is kind of a new look from a French chef. A lot of this is in positioning, is in packaging, is in embracing that maximalist ideal. And if you uphold the standard, both of your product and of the cost that you sell it at and the premium there and the aesthetics that come with it, you over time can begin to establish yourself as to a feeling of a luxury. And the experience really adds a lot to that. The ability to go somewhere in person and experience it adds this degree that really works so well in the modern era where we all make content, where people are looking for those like little relief and treats. It's why you see everything from Louis Vuitton cafes to Margiela pop-ups, why these luxury brands are leaning into this. They're almost going downstream and saying, hey, cool, you can go buy a cheaper thing from us at our Prada flower pop-up. But if you are a new brand, you can go upstream into that same thing. That's a much cheaper and easier than opening massive stores. And one interesting tool, if you're a creative, kind of diving a little bit more into this world, is this tool Public Works. It's by the same team behind Cosmos, where they've actually taken all this imagery that you can get from public domain, and they've scanned all these like intricate libraries, and they've put all this image where public domain basically means is past the trademark limitations where you can actually use it royalty free. And it's all like old school stuff of different ways, but they have a searchable, incredible database of things, which I think can get people going down this rabbit hole of what these visual ideas look like. And as you see, I can kind of scroll around this page here. There is no limitation to how in depth that goes. And so I do feel like we have all of these tools here for people to create these much more intricate brands and experiences. And I feel like that's where it's going. Even if your brand's been around for 4 or 5 years, it needs to feel and look and have the intricacy of if it's been around for decades. That's the new differentiator for aesthetic versus like a sleek presentation. And it's an interesting concept to think about if you care about luxury and its positioning. And if you think it's vapid, so is any amount of buying luxury in the first place. This is more, I actually really like it and am into this because you are creating a world, you are creating lore, you're creating history, you're letting artistic expression go extremely far versus refining it into the particularities of like something modern, which I think is an interesting exercise and involves more interaction with artisans. It involves more interaction with history. It makes it more interesting by default, at least to me. We've seen this play out in any number of ways in terms of how brands are positioned over time. One I always love to call out in a similar aesthetic is Marvis toothpaste, where they position themselves as a more expensive, higher quality, but far more interesting, just look at the experience of this website, approach to toothpaste with the same heritage maximalism look that you see so much in kind of the examples that I've given, that when you look at visual positioning, how different things compare to each other, this is one that I think every aesthetics-driven person should understand. You have your kind of yassified product positioning, you have your minimalist product positioning, your millennial product positioning, your counterculture, your liquid deaths, your death wish, your extreme positioning, and then you also have now this kind of heritage maximal position. Any product or any shelf the products are sold on, there could be an angle to take this with it. And it's funny to see this even go over into technology, where this is a little bit more of a kind of Art Deco Grecian approach, but A16Z's recent rebrand where they have gone all in on golden coins and maximalism of a different kind is, I think you will see that same ornate branding come to a very traditionally modernist tech as well. But anyway, I know this is a little bit different of an approach to how I do these like kind of more tactical luxury videos. I feel like this aesthetic is really important to talk about. It's one that's going to dominate for a while to come. It's an interesting playground to work within, and something that everyone who's building a perspective of the luxury world and the aesthetic world should understand. So I appreciate y'all watching, and there's more videos I have here about luxury if you want to get more into the tactics of that. Thank y'all so much.